So, welcome all to the Life is a Freestyle project. What we're doing here is we're trying to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to realize that they have a freestyler hidden within them. Whether you rap, whether you work on, craft projects, artsy projects, what have you, you can freestyle in your life to make sure that you're getting through whatever it is that you need to get through in the moment, especially when times seem like they're boxing you into a corner. So, we already have our guest of the hour in the chat. So let's bring in. Yeah. All right. What's going on, IT? We got C.Shreve the professor in the house.
How you doing, IT?
Good, man. I'm good. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Stewie Koss, and that guy is C.Shreve, right? So, C.Shreve is what we like to call a raw rhymer, what we like to call a member of Free the Optimist, uh, North Carolina representing right now. And, you got several things going on. We know you to be a professor. We're going to touch on multiple things, but tell the people a little bit about yourself as we get started here and as we get people, jumping in and what have you.
Well, as you know, you and I are, 80s babies, so we've got some, we've had some time to do some things. So
Right.
the most recent chapter was being a teacher for the last 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching public health, actually, which is wild to have like my thing become like news every day.
Right.
That's an interesting change. But before that, worked a little bit, went out in the world and kind of worked in some things related to what I teach now, but just kind of more, practical application, kind of a little bit of corporate type things, just working at a hospital, working at more of a corporate brand place that it was a cool job, but it taught me about how corporations work and, good life lesson.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
These days I'm trying to, right before live music was shut down, I was trying to become a full-time rapper. So I'm still trying to do that, but all of a sudden, obviously there's not the market to tour, and it makes you rethink releases and the whole thing. So, just trying to feel that out. I may find a part-time thing at some time to keep the checks coming in at some point, but I think everybody's trying to figure it out. And so I'm just recalibrating the whole thing a little bit.
Okay, definitely. So I'm going to pin this so we can get started on this 16 bars that we're going to have coming from you. Yep. All right, so, and the questions are bars too, probably. I think I should, dust my shoulder off a little bit on that. So to a point that you just made, actually, getting right into it so that we can get people in and out, and they can continue their Fridays as they see fit. Back in January, on your YouTube channel, you made an announcement that you would leave your official teaching gig. So, has getting on that path prior to this kind of popping off in like mid-March, where now we have the whole like world shut down, is that something that helped prepare you for transition, or is that something that you feel like, are you at a point now where it's like maybe you could have waited, or maybe you could have gotten into it a little earlier? Are there any like doubts or thoughts that you could have changed, or you feel like you were properly prepared for this?
I mean, there's definitely some of both. I've definitely had the doubts where I'm like, man, because I was kind of just wanting to hang on a little longer at my job. And, if I would have just toughed it out for half a semester more, they're teaching online now. And I would have kind of got it a little bit anyway.
True.
But at the same time, having the whole world be dealing with this, like I'll be in a bad zone, like sick of teaching like areas and perimeters to my third grade child, and then, wanting to go do whatever I want to do. But the whole world's dealing with that. People got sometimes multiple children that they're teaching, a kindergartner and this and that. It's a lot. So I think it's kind of, I don't know, that helps me have like a camaraderie. Like I'm not the only one going through this. The world is struggling with in their own way in various ways. Like in my household, my wife she's an essential worker. She's a nurse. So she's going to have to go. So she's had to, muster up the strength certain days. Like, I don't want to go do this. Kind of have to. So we've kind of, it's wild to see the different things. Then my little man, like he kind of feels alone. He's like, I want to see my friends again. Like,
yeah.
Wild to see the different viewpoints and mine, like, you know, because part of me like, man, I was supposed to be rapping and making this album right now during the day while my son was to school. And, oh, he's here, I got to teach him. Yeah, I could complain about that, but there's way worse things to do with your day. And so I'm just trying to keep perspective, because there's definitely both sides in my head too, but just trying to see the best of it somehow.
Shout out to all the essential workers out there. Appreciate y'all doing y'all work, and you know, in spite of everybody either wanting to be home or everybody wanting to be back out in the field. And you know, it's really tough to kind of gauge that right now, because it's like we got states opening up. We have a lot of people who are disagreeing with that, but then we have, you know, in some cases maybe those essential workers are starting to get a little bit of relaxation now that stuff is starting to open up. But perhaps, you know, we, as you've mentioned in some of your videos, we want to flatten the curve so that we don't have them having to go back out into the, you know, the trenches, if you will, of this pandemic war against humanity, really, right? So
it feels like we're fighting it, but it's not. It's wild.
Yeah, right. It's literally like, I mean, I don't know the degree to which it could kill us all, wipe us all off the face of the earth, but it's definitely something that we need to pay attention to, because it could if we you know, turn our back for too long and don't pay attention to it. But I think I hope and I think that we're starting to kind of turn a corner on this. As these states open up, it seems like they're using some kind of statistics and metrics to kind of, you know, figure out whether it works for them. So keeping it going into these questions. So that was bar number one. Bar number two, you've done in-studio performances via video before, recently, actually, especially with, you had a song recently called Minds Out of Order, where you essentially recorded that from like in the house, you know what I'm saying? And so that's definitely one of the things that we're seeing some artists start to do. And of course, with these lives and stuff like that, everything is starting to become digital. Is there a business model to live streamed concerts as an artist? Do you feel like there's something there that you can kind of tweak out or eke out when it comes to being a rapper, but also having to be on digital platforms right now?
I think there are. I've hesitated because sometimes it's just another platform to run, and then a lot of your platforms aren't really effective till they're really built, you know, until you have that following. And so it's hard to just out of the blue try to start Twitch. Like I had a producer I work with, he was saying he was just making beats on Twitch, or just like doing PC jam outs for a while and kind of doing a stream of that. And he was building it up, and he was, you know, he said it wasn't a bad revenue model.
Nice.
You know, what was, and then of course the IG lives that, you know, we've had some epic ones of those lately. But I don't know if there's, you know, monetization going on there, or, you know, but it obviously fires people up about, you know, Erykah Badu's catalog, and then hopefully they go straight, you know.
Right.
So I think there's a, even if it doesn't dollar for dollar on the stream work out quite, it kind of does because of relevance, the cultural kind of just chatter that's going on.
Attention is valuable.
I've hesitated. I've almost been, you know, because I'm kind of like, you know, you develop this value of people coming to the show for $5, $10. You have to scrape and earn that. And now, like, so now we're just on the computer, just the sound quality is not that great. It's so a part of me felt like, you know, maybe you record the little one song or a little medley of 3 songs and put that on YouTube, and then it lives. It has that enduring value. That's kind of where my head was at. I've had some friends I've seen do that just for a long time anyway. And, and so I don't know. I think there probably is, but I mean, my YouTube doesn't bring revenue in. But if I was somebody who that was 20,000 views, 40,000 views, I guess that does. I just expand out on subscribers and build the platform type thing.
Right. Okay.
I know I've seen people. You know, I think TikTok is one, but I've hesitated on that one. I'm like, I mean, my music is on there. Like when I do the distribution thing or whatever, it goes to that now because it's
nice.
But. And so people can, you know, and I probably should get on there and make a little dance and see if I can get some friends, you know, but that's just happened quite a
That's one way to do it. Yeah. Okay. Definitely. So, considering you being a teacher and you being a father, right? You have I believe a 9-year-old son, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
How do you tailor the teaching efforts to either homeschooling or teaching about what's going on outside to children right now? Like, how do you get younger people to wrap their minds around what's going on right now? Because a lot of them, you know, all of the young people, right, they've never experienced something to this degree before that's happening all over the world. So, like, are there any special kind of techniques or things that you kind of touch on, or language that you use? How does that work?
Well, it's funny. I guess maybe more homeschool first, or just being with one-on-one with little man. Because I taught biostatistics for a long time, not high level math, but statistics, higher level in third grade. That he's teaching, but he, he's gonna be more effective watching his teacher's video first for the 8 minutes, like her little quick thing, her intro, and then he'll be able to knock it out. And that's a more effective way than me pretending, oh, I'm the smart math guy, I'm going to do this better. I did it a couple of times where somehow I didn't know I had a video for a day or two. I was just winging it from the book, from the little work. And it was fine, but I was kind of, I think, skipping some steps, like doing it more the way we were taught, and it wasn't new math at all. And he got it too. And then like it messed him up for the video a little bit. He was like, they're not doing it so fast. They're
right.
So there's some of that. So I realized definitely, and also they do the little Zoom calls, which I think is cool as crap for kids. Like, I was thinking, what an advantage that is. If you're 9 years
old. I wish when I was a kid.
Kids are going to be having to do interviews on Zoom for the next 10 years. So these kids are already on it in third grade. They're going to, you remember back in the day when my man didn't mute it? Like the other day, this little kid didn't mute his thing. He was playing video games. He was like, oh, he stabbed me. Oh no. And the teacher, we was just all listening to it. And she was like, are you guys playing a game? It's just, that's a funny, hilarious moment. But the main thing they do is just have social interaction. Because I think what it rescues my son from is like this isolation, just being, just they'll spend 10 minutes just talking about their weekend, just kind of not doing that much, but you realize it's the dynamic, it's the letting them express themselves, hearing your other 9-year-old friend, like some of them, different people, different students have different speech levels or language abilities. And so you'll hear this kid who's kind of fighting through and learning how to speak with his peers. And you can just tell how valuable it is. So that's been amazing. I haven't geared as much toward them. It made me realize how different the learning levels are, because I kind of do this stuff online right now. I realized I had like a built-in set demographics, like my previous students. So I realized all the kids who kind of think it's cool that I rap and, oh, I had it for class, I wish I could start it for class. I was going to put a series of stuff online that's probably like 4,000 or 5,000 people who I've taught over the 12-year period. So I was like, that's actually a built-in audience. So I kind of talk to them. I almost talk to people as if you've had my class. I'm like, you remember we talked about, this is the curve we talked about, flat, I kind of almost am talking to the people in the circle, which I think, if I can develop that, I think that could become your little unit, your little neighborhood that people want to come for that.
Little community,
He's referencing the, we've seen that develop. It's it's a good thing to have that continuous dialogue that you're referring to. So I'm more comfortable, obviously, with what I've done before. And teaching little man is like, I'm realizing, wow, our third grade or all of our elementary school, every level of teacher is really amazing in their own right and in different ways. So it's cool to watch them interact and kind of, they kind of handed me a playbook, and then I got to run him through it. Like, here's the math, here's the science, here's everything's little quick videos, little quick. They've done a good job. I've been impressed with the public school system in North Carolina. They're doing a good job.
Great. So you being a rapper and a metaphor master, when you think about this phrase, flattening the curve, we talk about, trying to get people to stop going outside so that, they can spread the disease. And then, of course, the disease, matriculates and goes on and metastasizes and all this other kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
We want to prevent that from happening. That's why we're in the house. But when we think about this term, flattening the curve, and we look at it in a future focused perspective, is that because it's a metaphor, right? We talk about everything that we say, a lot of things that we say are really like wrapped up in this metaphor thing. So how do we avoid the term flattening the curve becoming something that can be misused in the future, or maybe misunderstood or misappropriated? Sure. Is there something there that you feel like it could be negative or harmful for us, or is it just we want to keep it within the realm of like epidemiology only? Because people tend to take metaphors and run with them outside of the context that they were in. So sure. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, I mean, the one I referenced when I posted the video about it was we have a different before this, we have a different flattened curve in America. Like if you curved an XY axis, just a simple XY curve, and the Y is just how many prevalence, just how many cases, or just how much. Yeah. And then if you put on the X weight, just Americans in weight, we literally flattened our curve. The obesity epidemic that everybody talks about, that's a different flattened curve, which I used to talk about in class. Of it shows you what an epidemic it truly is, because these are hundreds of thousands, millions of people that we're seeing go this way. Like, that should take you, 300 years. It should take you multiple generations to shift a curve like that. Now, this is a totally different curve. This is that's more chronic disease. It's more chronic. It's a different thing.
Lifetime type of thing. Yeah.
Totally different thing. So I think one of the big things I can see is, like anything else, kind of misuse. So if you say flatten the curve in this way, that's awesome if we talk about the way we're trying to delay it and we're actually having less cases. But if it ends up being misapplied and you're really wanting to, I don't know, I can just see it being anytime a message becomes so widespread, we talk about messaging. If you want it to be widespread, what's the average education level, or what's the level the reading level needs to be at? And so if all of a sudden a term like flatten the curve, which is a high level, it's pretty high level epidemiology, but now it's everybody's, then where does it go? How many is it already in 12-year-olds raps right now? Because I bet it is. There's no way it's not in some freestyles. Like, there's probably a flatten the curve freestyle out right now.
I would not be surprised. Right. And the funny thing is, like, prior to this this outbreak, it's funny that we still were kind of on the tail end of this whole flat earther movement.
Right.
And so I wonder if there's something there, because it's like, obviously they say the earth is curved, it's a sphere, but no, it's flat. And it's like, you got people trying to explain away things. So that's kind of the thing that kind of brought up the idea for me that this could be dangerous in the future. Is like, oh, well, we want to flatten the curve because the earth is flat. And it's like, wait. We can't just misappropriate a metaphor for something else into, and decontextualize it.
Well, it's the one I was thinking, it's tricky to figure out what that curve even represents when I taught it in class. Like, people math numbers like, oh, and if you're a skeptic, most scientists are skeptics, and so you like, prove it to me. And so it's but then some people who aren't really scientific minded kind of like, oh, I don't believe in your science. And you're like, well, are you like applying a skeptic's mindset? You truly like saying, show me, and being critical, or are you just saying, I don't believe it, but then you believe this other bull, just on a whim? So I like the consistency to kind of be there. The flat earth thing. One of my favorite flat earth moments was when at some point I think Kyrie was just trying to throw gas.
Kyrie Irving,
being silly. And it's one of the best clips. If anybody wants to look on something about this idea of kind of, because conspiracies are fun, right? It can be like, oh man, we didn't have, like, I used to love to spout off about the moon landing and be like, nah, Russia was ahead of us, like Sputnik was out ahead of us, like only thing we had to helm them was Hollywood, so we made this. And
there's a whole rabbit hole there.
Right, it's fun to talk about that, but then so it was on Around the Horn with Tony Kornheiser and Wilbon, and so they go, and Wilbon went off on him, I think, and he said, don't do that. He said, if you try to go down this road of show me, I wasn't there to see it, I don't believe you, your facts don't matter. He's like, if you go down this road, it's a really like a tiny slip on that slope before you end up at like Holocaust denial. You're like, that's how you'll end up, is I wasn't there, I don't believe your sources, you're mainstream brainwashed. And it's like, from where I'm sitting, I'm like, you're not actually being critical. You're just kind of like throwing the wrench in the gears and kind of saying, I don't believe in any of your facts. And it's like, I also understand how history works too, and the victors and everything. But there's also like, we have to have dialogue, and critical thinking has to be part of it, or it doesn't really work from where I'm sitting.
That's very true. And I mean, when you think about history and you kind of look at things retrospectively, you can't be so skeptical as to not accept any information if you don't accept it, because it's like you'll end up basically living in the present only and having no past to go from, nothing to learn from, to say, well, we made a failure at this point in history, so let's avoid that for the future. You got to know where you came from.
Yeah, the history, what the fails to know your history, doomed to repeat it type thing. We have a pandemic happening that, if you go 100 years back, like I started seeing a couple of these happening, because somebody had made a meme about it. It was kind of hilarious, but really on point. It was like, roaring, here comes the roaring 20s. And it was like infectious. They forgot what the 20s were like. And then, like, if you really look at what comes after the roaring 20s is the Great Depression, which we're literally about to exceed. And then Oh, if you really go right after that, you're going towards xenophobia and World War I and II somewhere.
Well, yeah,
Um, or World
that's
War
pretty
War
scary.
I was before 20, so World War II would be headed towards straight like, oh, so that's where anytime I just see Trump, just the blatant, oh, just the dog whistling, the just the fire up the base, just what he is just doing constantly. I get scared about some of just like, wait, we're repeating. Let's not go down
Yeah.
to roads again. We can just learn and not. What are we doing?
Yeah, so it may be good that we're at least experiencing something. Unfortunately, people have suffered a lot, very very greatly. In some cases, they've lost their lives, and condolences to all the people who have lost family members and who are going through it right now and maybe on their way out. That's really a bad situation. But those of us who are here and healthy have an opportunity to look at this and see
Yeah.
from a very critical standpoint, a very skeptical standpoint. You can't just listen to the leadership because it doesn't seem like the leadership necessarily knows exactly how to handle this because maybe the leadership hasn't necessarily dealt with this before. So that's something to take into account, and hopefully we can, get past this in a very valiant way. So speaking of the epidemiology that you mentioned, though, scholarship in epidemiology seems to be kind of skyrocketing because everybody's talking about it. All these buzzwords are being floated around in the news outlets and all this kind of stuff. So now people are talking about flattening the curve. People are talking about, a virus versus a bacteria. People are talking about all these, the pre-existing conditions and all this kind of stuff. So where do you believe people should be getting their information from about avoiding either disease or avoiding or being the most healthy that they possibly could be?
I mean, I would tend to go straight to the CDC stuff. I mean, it's. I know it feels, especially in the. I think if your brain starts to lump it with government and like Trump, what just happened? Trump just literally broke from Fauci's from his stance, and they refused to do the CDC's recommendations.
Right.
So CDC, if you you can get you can obviously get different sources. I'm a science person, so that'd be the science side of it. But I mean, just be that critical thinker where whatever you're consuming information wise, just kind of check your sources type thing. It's pretty easy to see. It's kind of one of those. A friend of mine was talking about how you can the kind of false confirmations you can receive on either side of anything on the net.
Right.
You can find your echo chamber almost anywhere. And
Anywhere.
so if you're looking for somebody to say, yeah, you're right, and the pat in the back, you could probably go find that. But if you keep that critical mindset, then you'll read through there and say, this seems a little too good to be true. And a lot of times it is. So it's kind of refraining from, if you're going to do the echo chamber and confirm one side, maybe counter it. Go look at that. Let's go find that opposite source to at least temper it by. But no, the CDC stuff, I mean, those are scientists that their whole goal is to control disease. I mean, I used to remind kids in class, we would teach from kind of their healthy goal points, the Healthy People Initiative. The most recent one will be the 2030 one. It's like out kind of perspective 10 years ahead, goals and objectives. And the overarching goal, and I always kind of remind kids where we're sitting and where we're looking from. The overarching goal, one goal of that is basically the reduction and kind of removal eventually of disparities. And so sitting from the perspective of let's identify the disparities and then let's learn from the success, the failure, and to make equity. And so when I remind kids of that, they'll a lot of times kind of nod, like that's why we're in this classroom. They remind themselves that's why I came to public health. So these are folks that are really working for the greater good. So what happens, there's a problem becomes Trump and in his administration kind of, they like to feed that small government, and to not filling positions, not filling some of the essential positions. If you're not ambassadors, you're not actually putting some of the folks in play who don't know the playbook that Obama leaves you. If you don't have people in place to just who had been practicing and know what to do, and you
experts.
Experts, and then you panic, and you were shocked at what your expert said. You were shocked when your own team said, "Oh my goodness!" By August there'll be 60,000 deaths. That same team now says 170,000 deaths, and that's definitely the low side of the estimate. So, when I started doing I did one curve video, and I was talking about I did like a long, like a 20-minute one because I really wanted to kind of get into it, and I didn't want to. I felt like I'd almost to make a bunch of relevant videos about the curve and about these things that were pop buzzwords. Felt to me like, for lack of a better way to put it on my brain, like pimping death. Like those curves are death. That's death curve. And so I was like, I didn't want to be the guy who's like, oh, look, I told you so. If we don't flatten, look what it does. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you so about death. That's,
Right.
feels really ugly. So,
It's macabre, yeah.
yeah, so I'm going to, and epidemiology, I know a lot about it, but that's not my full forte. I'm going to try to do more videos. I think the next one I'm going to do is about, kind of relate metaphoric. The next I'm doing a totally metaphoric one. The next one I'm going to do is called like chopping wood. Football, like back in the day, coaches like, chop wood, boy. I didn't even know what it meant forever. This is my preview of it. So I like one day had some wood to chop. I got this house and they had some like a bunch of logs, like chopped up, not yet firewood logs, but like they're cut right, but they're not split. So I had to chop them and like really chop them. And to me, what it started to mean was it's like the mountain, the stress mountain thing I mentioned on one of them. Like you're not going to get through a 2-month quarantine today. You're going to get through today. So it's like the step-by-step 1,000-mile journey type thing. You're not going to chop all that wood today. You're going to have to do some today. And then tomorrow, don't overexert yourself.
Right.
Some for tomorrow.
Moderation.
Yeah.
Moderation and repetition.
Yeah. We mentioned it in one of those chats recently talking about, you know, like, is it better to do like 100 push-ups today and then wait for 2 days and do it again? Or should you go 50 every day and get all that volume? And so it's what works for you too. Sometimes different thing, you know, different strokes, different folks and whatnot too. But you know, it's
good habits are important to build, and I think that's whether it's your own body or whether it's society as a whole. We have to build good habits, and we have to kind of use the building of good habits to kind of get rid of push out the bad habits, because the bad habits are going to be stuck in there until we replace it with something, and that's why you have to start building those good habits. So I definitely agree with you. So speaking on the stress mountain metaphor that you mentioned, I'm going to jump to that. And before we get to that, everybody that's in the chat right now, definitely make sure you smash that like button as we continue on through here. When you hear something that you like, to get these numbers popping, because we got to get people in here to listen to these bars. These bars are very important, but also know that we will be putting these videos on YouTube. We have a Life as a Freestyle YouTube channel, so we put these up a little bit after we do the lives, and you can check that out. We'll give you some more information towards the end here. But as we continue on, can you speak to the stress mountain metaphor? And you mentioned, I watched the video that you had on YouTube. You have 4 A's: avoid, adapt, alter, and or accept. And so how do we do the 4 A's during our current stay at home kind of situation? And how do people take that and apply it to maybe any frustrations that they may be going through, or any blockages because they can't go to this place, or they can't work, or they can't meet their friends or whatever? How do you adapt and avoid it, all those things? Okay.
So like for me with the stress mountain, like I'm talking usually to college kids, right? And so they're literally looking at this semester, like how many credits am I taking? Do I have a part-time job? Am I trying to get a fraternity? All the little whatever they're doing. And so I would say, look at the semester, like, what are you trying to do? How are you trying to go to med school while you try to also get engaged and all these things? Too much. And so when you break that down, what's your goal? Are you trying to be this rapper and a comedian and all this at one time? What are the things you're trying to do? And right now, it's not even about goals. It's more of the stress side, right? It's like, you can't work for 2 months. Where's your backup savings plan? Like, so this has been more thrust upon us. So it's a little bit more like, a lot of times I'll tell them maybe they have this goal at the top of the mountain, but along the way there's a rock slide, or along the way their shoe, something breaks. They need a ride. How do you get up there? But the A's are real simple, like, and they relate to ideas, the metaphor of the mountain, like, how much is in your load on your pack? How much you got in there with you? Are you bringing tools to help you, or are you bringing like just stuff that weighs you down? And can you
shout out to Anna Keegan in the chat talking about the stress mountain got her through the senior year.
Hey, what up, Anna? My students are amazing to watch, to see what they do out there. I've had students go out there and be like biostatisticians. I mean, I've done this a long time. I watch these students go out there and make a difference. So shout out to Anna, and to all the PH and HP students. So like in the metaphor side, you have the pack. How fast are you going? How fast are you trying to go through life? This has been a great example of like everything stopped. We have to stay home. So all that go. I realized like a lot of my whole relevance as a rapper is having a show coming up, having the single coming out, having a tour, this relevance thing. All of a sudden you can't do that. It's like, what do I post? What do I do? Who, it resets your mind. And so for a lot of people,
Yeah.
that might be also your relationships, or all of a sudden you're with your roommate all the time, or your spouse, or your son. So, how fast you're moving through life was kind of what I was getting at there. And then what was the goal you're trying to do? Is your goal trying to get through this quarantine while I make an album and I help my son homeschool, where I realized, let's do the album slowly. Let's take my time.
Mm.
Okay, I didn't get to record today. It's okay. I wanted
Yeah.
to. So on the A's that kind of relate to that same metaphor, alter, adapt, accept, and avoid. So we can't avoid this one. We wish we could. Some folks can. Some folks can say, okay, I'm gonna go find an essential job that will allow me to work through this. And they didn't even avoid it. They didn't have to. They were able to do that one and kind of apply that. But a lot of us are doing adaptations, figuring out a way to get a workout in the house. How do you find
Yeah, seriously.
and then think of the businesses that are trying to find a way to give you, maybe curbside service, or adapt their business behavior to somehow survive or thrive. And so that these kind of gray areas, like an alter is a lot like adapt. Maybe you alter your daily routine, which is a lot like adapt. They're similar. Alter might be, I got to do things online now instead of, it's real similar to adapt. They're kind of different ways of looking at the same thing. But the trickiest one, I think, for a lot of people is accept. Accept is like grieving. When you basically realize the powerlessness you have in a situation, and you accept, this sucks, or this is hard, or man, I failed today. I hope I can get up tomorrow and dust myself off. Like, acceptance is really powerful, because once you do that, it kind of, when you realize that it's kind of out of your hands, it's almost, you're like, man, I can't do, I've done everything I can do. Then you almost accept that the chips will fall where they may, and that almost has a power of its own. So what I always tell the kids is, if you're not doing one of those, if you're not finding a way, if you look at a situation, so rents, or I can't work today, boss says I'm not an essential employee, I have no check coming in next week, I also have rent due. Oh, okay. Apply those 4 A's. I can accept that stress and tell my boss, hey, this is just, you have to eat it for like 2 weeks, and I'm gonna be late, but I'm gonna get it to you. Can you accept that? I have to accept that on me. Can you accept it? If that doesn't work, maybe is there a way I can alter it? Can I give him half? Can I alter? Is there a way I can change his viewpoint or my viewpoint? Can I find I don't know, somebody to offer studio time and have him front me? Is there another way I can get money, another revenue stream? Can I alter my procedure to get some money? Can I, and that's kind of adaptation, right? If I alter in the right way, I'm adapting. It's kind of, an adaptation is kind of just a good alteration, but they're similar and slightly different. I would tell my students, like, if there's a test coming up and you try to avoid it by not taking the test, maybe you just eat it. Does that equal a C, or is that equal an F? Does that teacher gonna let you make it up? Maybe he will let you make it up, and it's no big deal. You just didn't go, and then you told him, I was stressed out. If it was me, I'd probably be okay, but some teachers aren't cool. So, but basically the whole idea with the 4 A's is, if you're looking at a situation, you're maxed out stress level, look at it differently. Just slightly tweak it. Like, go, okay, this is awful. All right, accept it. What's next? Like, or if you don't get to accept level, okay, how can I adapt? How can I alter? How can I avoid this? I can't avoid this. I gotta talk to him. I gotta tell her this. I gotta deal with this situation. Sometimes you avoid it, but if you avoid it long enough, it festers, and it can become this whole thing that it shouldn't have been. So you can't use them all every time, and you can't. They're just basically like, when you get stuck, these are unstuck things. That's how I look at it.
Right. So yeah, it's basically saying, one of the metaphors that I recently just kind of came up with was like, it's the snow globe theory. Like, you look at what is the situation that I have right now, and if I look at it from different angles, maybe I'll see different aspects of the situation that I didn't think about before, or that I wasn't able to see from different angles. And so as long as I'm trying to approach this subject from a snow globe standpoint, I have control over what it is I'm actually capable of doing, because I know the angles and I can see the different opportunities there. So I think, like you said, using those 4 A's, and maybe not all at the same time, maybe not in necessarily a particular sequence, but being able to use them as an effort to de-stress your situation, or as an effort to kind of accelerate your climb up that mountain of stress, so you can get to that top of it, so you can get more perspective. And I know we're mixing metaphors here, but like, that's definitely something that you got to do. You know what I'm saying?
Perfect.
Yeah. So, we're rappers. So how advantageous is it to be a rapper that has a platform like YouTube, when you also have other subjects besides rap as part of your content? Because it seems like you can kind of go into your teaching bag and you can go into, you know, your understanding of a little bit of biology and a little bit of, you know, healthcare and stuff like that. So as a rapper, when you have this YouTube channel and you're kind of making this content, how are you approaching the creation of your content? Is it that you want to mix and match for every video, or is it that you want to have some videos that are rap, some videos that are more like teaching, or you know, like what's your method that you go about?
I think I would tend to go towards separating the two and have a teaching one and I have a couple that are mixed, and I think it's been really successful. I think where it's kind of, you know, some people did come for this, but the next thing you know, I threw a beat on and they like that. So I think mixing them is definitely a solid idea. But I think it's useful. I mean, I came to the conclusion I needed to make a channel and kind of have different content, whether it was the teaching thing or I thought about, you know, indie rapper type tips. I have a friend who did a great job with kind of just like helping indie rappers. He realized he has a lot of rappers that are friends of his that would follow him. That's kind of his audience. And he found a way they'll check his videos. He can show them how to book a tour. He can show them how to put together a press pack. Just some basics, you know,
Nice.
do-it-yourself stuff that's really useful. I've referred several, when people ask me about stuff like that, I'm like, have you checked this channel out? Go check out my man's channel. And so, and then he realizes, like, I talked to him about it. And he said, you know, this is Big Low. He's a good friend down in Pensacola. And he said, shout out to Big Low. He said, biglowhiphop.com, hit that up. He's great with merch and just being a good indie rapper hustler. And we've done some things together. And I asked him, I said, you know, I was just asking him how the progress was because he got to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And that's a big threshold. And I say, you know, he gets so many subscribers from do-it-yourselfers or from more the channels of education or things that aren't rap. They're just like people who have a channel or they're doing the same YouTuber thing or whatever. And then, but then they'll end up liking his raps. They'll hit him up like, yo, I didn't check your raps till just yesterday. And man, you got bars. And that's a nice roundabout way to, so I think I was kind of assessing like, who's my audience? Who already likes what I do? And I was like, dude, I've had 10 years of graduates. Those kids, I'm sure they've said, some of them have been like, I wish I could check out Shreve's class these days. It'd be cool if you know. So let's just put some stuff online, and then hopefully I'll find my footing with it. And more like I've only done like 5 or 6 episodes, so I gotta kind of get my, you know, kind of upgrade it, figure it out, fill out what I'm doing more. But it's okay. I think it's a useful way to. I think this pause button of Corona kind of makes us say what, you know, you know, Lupe IT says, add value. What do you bring to the table? And so you can't, when there's no shows, you can't say, hey, look at me, I'm popping, I'm doing all these things, I got this album on the way. You can do that, but you also kind of need to find a way to be relevant in a way that feels real and honorable and true to you and what your real core goals are. And so still figure that out. But I think a YouTube channel, a platform is vital to that, because where are you going to put it? You got to find a way for people to get that information. So
indeed,
it's helpful.
And that
21st century, you know, have these things available to us is pretty key.
Right, and that kind of leads me to the next question. We are at bar number 8 coming up here.
What up, Rhino? Got some friends in the
building. Yo. Welcome to the chat, y'all. Welcome to the chat. Smash that like button if you like what you hear. So, are there any new platforms? You got YouTube, of course. You mentioned TikTok earlier as just like a possibility, but are there any platforms or tech that you're becoming aware of, or any that are becoming more common for you at this time? Like we have you know, people using Instagram Lives, of course, a lot more. We have people perhaps using YouTube in a different way than they were before this, because you can do lives on there, and then all these different platforms. You mentioned Twitch before. Are there any brand new things that have come out? I've heard about things like House Party, just, you know, from people talking and stuff, but like anything that you have heard or that you feel like maybe is sorely needed that you could imagine could be created out of this because of the need that we see already?
Well, we see like the huge value of, you know, of a one-on-one versus type battle, and the different chatter that develops. And we know if we look at the metrics, that's, if we, you know, in a month from now, we'll definitely see the huge bumps that has on their streaming and all the, you know, we can probably already see it. But then what has that scale down for artists? I mean, you know, I think this is helpful for any level artist to kind of have this relevant live stream type thing. I think everybody's seeing the value there, but then what's kind of the average of that with some of the platforms that had just begun to develop with live, like small shows, like what is it called? So Far Sounds. And there's another one called, I'll think of it in just a minute. but they're basically like, it's a house show. It's somebody saying, here's gonna be 20 people, 30 people in my living room, and they're gonna have 3 artists, and they're gonna almost have like Q&A time, but you're gonna do a small set. It's very intimate.
It's
That
like the
would
Tiny Desk concerts from NPR.
yeah, exactly. But it's literally, there's a host you can sign. Artery is the one I was going to do at South by Southwest, but we ended up having to stop because of Corona.
Right.
Yeah, Artery is one, and So Far Sounds. Is that right? Yeah. And so basically, you're doing these small things, but you end up with a really connected audience. Some people can function really well in that environment. Certain artists, that's a really great place. And then, so I'm thinking, if you average that with, say, this, are people going to do So Far Sound Zoom sessions, like where, is there a right level where you can have your computer screen with 15 people or 20? Is there a right balance
Right.
that equals the right feel of kind of a Q&A session, kind of a focus group? I'm kind of playing music for y'all with, I think high quality is a key. I don't think people,
Right.
I love watching, anybody really, but I don't want to hear like in IG feed level sound quality when Babyface is singing and playing the guitar. I want it to be, he's in the studio, I want it to be studio quality kind of. And so, I think IG could
Or
step
Teddy Riley's microphone.
right. You gotta, I think there's a like kind of that's part of the new norm we're dealing with, is if something's working, how are they gonna monetize it? How's it scale down? How does, because we kind of, the indie group kind of, we pave the way. Sometimes we watch and kind of catch the ripple of what's working at the higher levels. And so there's, of course, a back and forth going there, but it's interesting to see where it's going.
There's definitely an opportunity for people who are into creating technological platforms or any kind of software to like flip a concept that's currently existing right now. So we see these opportunities for chats and people kind of in the chat room while we're watching these live videos. Is there something where we can have, like a versus, but it's like the audio is a completely different stream. It's like Spotify audio, but like then you also have the videos of the two people who are doing the battle, and they're just picking their songs that they're going to select, and you're watching it through that. That might be a new platform, so that's something to think about. But definitely, we're seeing it evolve in front of our faces. This is a time that we all have the opportunity to see happen in real time. Yeah,
it's beautiful to see, and I think that's kind of one of the quintessential parts of hip hop, is that just kind of like, you give us a tool, you leave it right there, like, we go one-on-one, and we could just, and you're real famous, I'm real famous, we got good catalogs. It's just a beautiful, somebody had a simple idea and then applied it, and it's, we're give us 2 records type thing. We can figure out how to make magic with a very simple set of things. So I think
it kind of writes itself, actually. So that's really good. All right, so bar number 8 is down. We are now on to bar number 9. Some people compare the COVID-19 pandemic to the AIDS, HIV pandemic of the 1980s. You and I were kids then. Do you have any idea what it's like to be a kid right now? You kind of touched on this earlier, but like, not just kids, but teenagers, people who are growing into their adulthood. You've definitely taught young college students and, early 20s people. So just being able to kind of see the different age ranges and spectrum of experiences that people are coming in with. Do you feel like younger people are able to kind of adapt and handle these situations maybe better than a lot of people that are older than them might have anticipated, or is it worse, or is it somewhere in between?
Probably somewhere in between. I guess on the plus side, I think teenagers and young adults in general, probably sub 25s, feel more bulletproof than the rest of us, which I think is a beautiful thing for the way they're going to bounce back and the way that they're going to handle things, the way that they're going to be have fortitude and just be able to continue to move forward and be an amazing generation. I mean, if this is a generation that literally just took off through a depression, well, I think they were known as the greatest generation. They grew up in the Depression. I mean, my grandparents, I heard about the Great Depression constantly. I heard how it affected everything. My grandmother would tell me about how she would, soap cost money. They didn't have that much money. So she would, the soap would get down small, the little bits she'd put in this thing, and it would become hand soap. And it would just maximize everything. You weren't wasting. And so maybe this generation learns that, and then that helps them thrive through a generation.
Greatest Generation Part 2.
Right, and hopefully not, you don't have to earn it through, you know, defeating Nazis. I mean, because it's, you know, there's insanity that happened 100 years ago. So that's
There
the
are still Nazis to defeat, but it is what it is.
absolutely. So there's, when I look at the young kids, because they feel bulletproof, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? They're going to be durable. They're gonna survive this. They're gonna. I mean, kids are amazingly just hardy,
Resilient.
resilient and hardy. I would think those two words that would be the best ones for that. They can handle. I mean, a kid can survive a divorce. A kid can survive the death of their parents. Kids are amazingly resilient
Yeah.
in ways that adults, like, I'm worried more about the 27-year-olds that are like, they've been struggling through a recession with the job market, and now it's a depression.
Yeah.
I worry about that long-term 12 years of the job market being rough. That's hard.
Yeah.
And but also with the kids, I worry because that bulletproof attitude, are they thinking that it's a joke? The social distancing is a joke, and like, we're out of school, let's go to the beach. And next thing you know, this virus just kind of hangs out in our society for the next 18 months, and we have outbreaks here, and we have, oh, it's a hot zone in the south. Oh, the hot zones, really, are we going to do that? Because it's a big population. If that happens and there's no vaccine, then it's a world the people from Atlanta, people from Dallas, people from Michigan, anywhere are going to go eventually to Europe, or going to go to Japan, or the world will, if we keep having hotspots, they just keep moving. They'll keep going somewhere else. And so I know we're waiting for this magical vaccine, but sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes not I mean, there's HIV, there's not a vaccine. I mean, we're heading towards better and better. You know, the antiretroviral therapy is having huge gains, but we don't have that anti-polio vaccine that we have. And when kids forget about polio happening, or forget about, you know, just some of the huge campaigns that have existed for hepatitis, for previous diseases. You're in my generation, kids had chickenpox parties. Kids were like, oh, my sibling has chickenpox. Oh, just give it to your brother, and then you go play Nintendo with him. Like, now there's a scene for that. So there's different ages for how
and there's also, I mean, I think there definitely needs to be more focus on nutrition as part of the health routine.
Absolutely.
Because I think a lot of people don't, and hopefully maybe the younger generation will take something out of this, because we have the meme culture. And then we have, like, what I'm seeing on things like Instagram is you have these kind of memes that are created for informative purposes that are around things like how to build your immune system, how to eat healthily, how to do this, how to do that. And they're very, like, compact and, you know, individual posts. Maybe they have some comments, or maybe they have some, you know, captions or what have you. But the good thing is that because younger people are automatically kind of geared towards looking at these types of posts and seeing them as relevant, and also they're everywhere all the time. You know, wherever they go, they'll see these things in digital platform. It's like billboards to them. So they'll be able to see stuff like that, and we'll hopefully be able to get to a point where, you know, people will grow up knowing that, you know, oh, you have to eat these certain foods in order to keep your immune system healthy, so that when stuff like this happens next time, maybe we won't, you know, have to be, you know, thirsty for a vaccine, or maybe we won't have to, you know, flatten the curve or anything like that, because people will already have good health habits in the first place. Because a lot of these things are pre-existing conditions. That's what happens with a lot of people that are really suffering from this. So, all right, moving on. Talking about social media with that, and then of course just the way we consume media in general. A lot of on-demand streaming platforms are really raking in the viewership right now, including, you know, us being able to do this. So are there any recent favorite shows, documentaries, movies, or maybe albums that you've come across because you've had to be at home, and because you've been able to have access to maybe something like a Netflix, or something like, you know, being able to listen to Spotify more often, or something like that?
I've had an experience with digging into things, but it's been less the streaming stuff. I've lived in rural America, so my internet doesn't always enable streaming the way it should. Unfortunately, it's the thing that exists in America still, is high-speed internet isn't everywhere, a level, or in a consistent fashion. So I rated my mom's record collection a little while back, and
nice.
she had the Shaft soundtrack, which is incredible. Yeah, I was listening to Spinners today. So, like, I've been kind of digging. I've been kind of trying to get into my samples, and I got the drum machine out. I've been trying to watch my tutorials of. I've got a SP404 that I've it makes sense to me, but my MPC doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm trying to watch more videos and I'm learning how to use them together. You can make because the MPC is really good for finger drumming and just for making beats. And then the SP is way better for sampling, for layering. I mean, for
Right.
so I like to make the beat over here on the MPC and then put the beat in on the SP and then kind of layer over it and create sample. You know, I've never been a producer, but that's one thing I'm doing with time right now is trying to scratch the producer itch a little. And then we have a puppy. And so I realized in my DVD collection, I have the Dog Whisperer. That's like an old school one for the heads out there. But my son like loves the Dog Whisperer. So we've been watching the Dog Whisperer. We watched some Seinfeld the other day. I have some of those. So we kind of been going through what do we already have here to watch on DVD?
Right. Right.
Or what you know, we have a pile of records. Let's go through these records. So I kind of been trying to catch up on some things I already wanted to do. I have like a whole bunch of videos. I kind of want to catch up on some like lectures here, or I've been doing a lot of reading. I've been trying to be on my reading game and really kind of in the morning. I like to read. I like to get up. I love when my son sleeps in and I can like have a little quiet morning, have some coffee, just kind of wake up slow and read, just put some good stuff in the brain. It kind of comes out later as bars. I find if you like put it in there, it soaks in, and then later through the day, you'll like some of that'll add into your philosophy and come out in a different way. You got to put some input. And so I've been trying to add a lot of input and I need to stream more stuff, but our internet's kind of it's just hit or miss where we live. And so it's
good to have that collection, that physical collection of stuff to actually be able to touch on, because there's a lot of people who are dusting off dusty collections of anything right now, books and records and what have you.
Well, it's one of the funniest experiences I have is like, so our computer, we can get on, we just use our phones for like a hotspot. And so we'll get on something like, there's this thing called Epic that my son will read on. It's like a bunch of kids books on demand. He gets an iPad and it loads, but sometimes it won't load, like the internet will kind of, whatever reason, because so I don't know, we live in the hills or whatever. So like, it'll be out for a little bit and he'll be like, and then I'm like, how crazy is that you have this high speed thing, this 4G, like all this, you know, this technology, but this book is loaded at all times. Like all
times,
it's always loaded. Like there's no loading. It's you can go as high speed as you want. The whole thing is right there. There's no loading the next page. Just go at it. So
no battery to worry about.
Yes, I'm kind of teaching him like sit down and when like kind of like we talked about, like read and have Google next to you, because if you don't know the word, you should Google it. And so he almost is realizing that like in the reverse way, when Google doesn't work, you better have a book ready to read while it loads, you know, which I think that's a cool, I love when like something like that happens. Like my son's watching old DVDs or we're dusting off records. It's like, it's 2020. He could have missed that somehow. So I like when stuff kind of comes back around. So it's kind of been a reverse for me. I've been kind of going back, digging the crates a little here and there.
So. It's good to be analog and digital and, you know, all the other forms, spiritual, et cetera, as we kind of, you know, sometimes unplug and sometimes plug in depending on what it is that we have available to us. But it's good to give people an opportunity to focus on what's going on at home. Like, you know, we're always on the go. We're always using our phones. We're always away from ourselves, really. And so having an opportunity to just sit and be with either family or be by yourself, be in peace, be in space, be in now, and kind of not be necessarily connected to everything all the time. That's actually a really good thing. So we're gonna do a lightning round, as we have a few more minutes on this. So let's try to get some of these on a faster note. So a lot of people are angry at politicians right now. You were talking about Trump and his administration and stuff like that. What do you, from what you know of young adults, do you think this time will inspire a lot of people, especially young people, to get into politics?
I don't know. I think the politics thing ends up kind of wearing on kids. I mean, it's just the 24-hour news cycle is always going to hit it. I mean, Trump has done an amazing job of just dominating the news cycle constantly. He does something stupider or more out of left field every time just to dominate the headline. And so I think that may inspire some people off, but it also might turn some kids off in a way that or turn them away from politics because it looks ugly and mucky, right? But then maybe they want to change the world in a different way. So I think sometimes, you know, the Great Depression, as we were referencing, maybe some of those kids were like, okay, I'm going to be a teacher because I want to help the kids that don't have, you know. I think it's going to inspire a generation of maybe some nurses, like when they're like, wow, the real heroes are the nurses, the doctors, the people in the front lines. I think there's going to be, I would assume there's probably, you know, some 9/11 effect to firefighters. Like, you know, there's probably some kids who are like, you know, I want to defend my country by putting, you know, and so there's probably going to be some of that. So I don't know about too many people are going to want to go be a senator because, you know, they see what McConnell looks like up there and they see, you know, what's going down. So
yeah, we do have younger politicians coming out of the woodwork. So like
and some
AOC and people like that. Yeah.
oh, she's excellent. And I think she may, I mean, like, she, you know, is able to navigate a lot of different lanes kind of for herself and thrive. I think, yeah, she is highly inspirational. So
and she's got her finger on the pulse of the youth too. So that's always a good thing.
She was excellent at Jesus and Miro. Did you see her on there?
I did not see her yet. No.
Yeah, watch her.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
You did well.
Okay. So then, how best then can we look at our current society as useful for our future growth? How do we look at what we're going through now in order to propel us to the future?
I think from one of our big point of views, constraint, it's a huge constraint. You got job losses, you got people who are going to have to learn, who've never learned, that all of a sudden this Christmas might be different. There might be less toys to the table. Material things don't matter as much.
Maybe no Black Friday whatsoever this time around.
Right, just realizing, you know, and just it's kind of a beautiful thing to realize, like every time you go by, like on the way home, or like, there's a store there, oh, do I want to just stop and grab this or that? You're like, my brain will go, is coffee creamer worth extra rent? Is it really worth it? Like I'm gonna group all my stuff and get it curbside. I'm not gonna. Why would I go get in front of 5 people or 10 people, or why would I even do that to myself? So I think that's gonna be interesting how that affects society for the long term. And I think as a business model, these businesses have to find a way to navigate that, or you will just not be able to thrive.
Yeah, cool. So I'm gonna wrap it up with a couple of questions here that I think are really large scale. So, who is your biggest inspiration in the midst of all of this right now?
I think I'm gonna keep it close to home and go like my wife and split it with like her and little man. Maybe she gets 60, he gets 40 because he's being the isolated 9-year-old trucking on, but she's having to go out there and, you know, not want to be there, but get up 6:30 and go see people and, you know, wear the mask all day and talk to patients who are scared. And some are video, they've learned to adapt and do some video conferencing, but sometimes you got to see somebody, and I don't think it gets as real until she has to test somebody, and it's like somebody comes in with the symptoms for them and she's testing them today. That's when it gets very real. And it's like, wow, this is part of my job. That's a little too, you know, that's intense.
Yeah, it could be any day or every day. That's the crazy part.
Because she's not quite up to, you know, in the emergency room up to her elbows like some of the folks in New York are. I mean, she's not that quite front line, but she definitely is the front line. So I think she's had that experience a time or two where it's like, okay, this person might have this. This is very real now. You know, what happens if I have to get quarantined? What does that mean for my family? It gets the down go real quick of what so.
Yeah, okay. What's up to Scott Webby in the chat saying Shreve is the best professor y'all had at App State. Look at that.
What's up, Scott?
So last thing, and then we'll get you some opportunity to kind of you know, pub a little bit. So what's the first thing you're doing once the world opens back up?
I'm probably, I mean, the shows won't be available immediately. The big thing, because of my shows, I would love to go be at a show. I would love to go, whether I'm on the stage or not. I know of like, you know, weekly type event that happens in Asheville. It's like this funk jam. I would just go and maybe not even rap, but maybe they would call me on stage. Maybe I'd rap. I was realizing, you know, what do I miss the most? I think humans, especially rappers and live music performers, it's a beautiful, like, irreplaceable chemistry, that live environment. So I think that one's one. I'm kind of an introvert, so I haven't missed tons and tons of things. Like, it's okay to not go to the gym. I can do some workouts at home. I miss the movies a little bit. Right?
Real quick.
Way that you used to, where you could put that whatever, do a little mini tour, find ways to generate momentum. And now it's at the same time as we're talking about, it's a reset in time. So you can step back and enjoy your time and realize there's kind of like that acceptance. There's nobody knows the blueprint of how this is going to roll out and open. If it doesn't calm down by the fall, all of a sudden in the fall and the winter, people go indoors more or are forced indoors more. Next thing you know, there's always more colds and flus in the fall. That means in the winter, there will be more of this, you know, so it's just, does that mean when does it, you know, so I don't know. I'm a realist too, so I'm realizing I'm probably not the day the world's open going straight to a show. My wife will probably kill me. Like, you can't just go over there and jump in, you know, go to a pack.
Right.
You know, it's not smart. So
second wave, you want to avoid that second wave of people who are being irresponsible. that may be symptomatic and you know are ignoring their symptoms or whatever. Make sure you don't want to catch anything. A lot of people who are kind of the skeptics and the people who are kind of like uh, um, I guess ringing the alarm about what to avoid when this happens and when the world opens back up. They're saying, you know, it's easy for there to be a second wave because a lot of people have been in the house, and so their immune systems are actually dropping
Right.
because they're not actually experiencing being back and forth with people every day and exchanging whatever little microbiological stuff that keeps them able to kind of resist, you know, any kind of diseases. So there's definitely some stuff in there where you know, getting back around people might be a little, you know, people might be hesitant for a while.
Yeah.
But the world is definitely changing from a fundamental standpoint in terms of how we see the importance of human to human contact and what we do to actually make that happen. Are we actually going to be on top of each other in the crowd and moshing and stuff, or are we just going to kind of like, you know, everybody's going to be rocking a kind of novelty mask just to kind of like as like a joke to what was going on, but also as like a reminder to say like, hey, like we just came through some wild stuff. Let's make sure we can get through this, you know, and as we go forward in the future. So I'm gonna get these last two questions in because we got a little bit extra time now.
I was gonna say the realistic one I'll probably do because shows probably won't have the realistic one is probably when it does open is go see people, go visit some people,
Friends and family.
I did finally for Mother's Day go see we took little man to go see his grandmas, which aren't that far away, but I almost felt like I was doing something. I was like, oh, we're leaving the house, we're going because it's only like an hour up the road, but you know you almost feel I don't know. It's so weird to have been kind of isolated for that long. So I think I'm just going to see friends and going to hang out and you know that type of thing is the first thing I'll do. Is we were talking about carriers and stuff earlier. Like I've wondered before that was my hesitancy to go even see my mom was like, what if I was a carrier? I come, you know, my wife comes home like maybe I'm almost immune to some of these germs because she comes home from work and my body's been exposed to that for years, and so maybe. Like I don't even have the signs, but then if I go over to this other person, they all of a sudden they're vulnerable. So that's where I kind of worried a little bit is, you know, you worry, could you be somehow a carrier and not even know it? And I think that's what really the worrisome part of it gets into.
Yeah, and to the point we made earlier, it's important to I think we have to have some kind of movement of nutrition and what it is that we're putting in our bodies. Because when I say nutrition, I know a lot of people probably think about like food, but you know, herbs, certain types of vegetables, certain types of tea, certain types of things that you know will help your body kind of respond as it should because you have all these different processes happening in your body all the time. And so it's like we want to make sure that the people who we are going to see and the people who are coming to see us, and as well as ourselves, we are all trying to like improve. It's almost like how people take airborne when during flu season or when people take like vitamin C or something like that. It's going to have to be a little bit more expansive than just airborne vitamin C, but it's going to have to be something where in order for us to not fear to be in front of our family members, in order for us to not fear to be, you know, in any kind of gathering of a significant amount of people, we have to be able to not be approaching that situation weakened already. We have to approach that situation strong in terms of our immune system and our immuno responses. So we got to make sure that like we're, you know, what you are what you eat, and you know whatever you put in your body is what the body ends up using for how it makes your skin, your bones, your blood, and all this other stuff. So it's important to get that situated for the people that we love, so that you know when this does open back up, we can just go see people and not have to fear for their lives or ours. You know.
Yeah, the with the rescue the vitamin C is always funny to me. We in class we'd always get into it and like in nutrition class, you know, if ideally you should get all your, you know, your vitamins, nutrients from your food, you shouldn't even need something like that. And so it's always funny we get this fun discussion of like, is that even is it have value because you can't have 1,000% of vitamin C. You're gonna just pee it out. You're not gonna. So you're literally wasting some money, but if you're a person who doesn't have orange juice or doesn't have bananas or regularly doesn't have fruits and vegetables, you are deficient. And that's where a supplement is absolutely helpful. And
Right.
and so it's like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that and you shouldn't need this. But
Mm-hmm.
in your case, go ahead and take this. It probably will help because this is cold flu season and you're not prepared for it. It's nourishment in a way that prevents and kind of promotes your health. It doesn't,
Exactly.
you don't want to be in that vulnerable state that you have to kind of catch up and recover for something all the time, or behind the 8 ball, or however you want to say it.
Yeah. So bars number 15 and 16 coming right up. So
Okay.
that was 14. And we're gonna cap it off with the last 2 bars,
Okay.
which tend to be the best 2 bars of every verse anyway. So let's do this. Yeah. So how do you imagine this moment in history will be represented several decades from now, especially considering how prepared we could or should have already been for this to actually happen?
I mean, I guess things are always, of course, like, when you're looking back, you're going to have that context, that extra 10 or
At 2020.
the whole how it played out. So, we're obviously just forecasting it, but I don't know. I think it's definitely going to feel like a drop ball in some ways. I mean, I think, to me, it almost feels like kind of this mythic, like this Greek mythology type thing where like a person's like hubris comes back around and hits them in the face. Like,
Oh, yeah.
was this coming? Part of me says this was coming anyway. Like, no matter who was in that position, whether that was Hillary, whoever was sitting there coming, this was hitting in the face in 2020. But it came at the guy who's no empathy, who just loves to just scapegoat, loves to fire. It's like every time I don't even watch it, but if I cut it on for the first little bit, I was watching like the health like little meeting.
Yeah.
And I liked it because he was finally talking again to press and call him out. And he didn't do that for a minute. And so,
right.
It's a press conference basically where he could get, they can throw it back at him. So that's a necessary thing. So I kind of watched a little bit and I was like, I can't watch him and just not feel like he's boiling my brain in some way. And I'm like, not, I feel like I get dumber watching him.
Yeah, you're losing IQ points.
But I feel like, I saw somebody compare like, what was it, George Bush's banner, like we won, like on the aircraft carrier. And they compared it to like Trump's something. It was, I can't remember what it even was, but it might've been like, it was just comparing it to his reopen, or we got to get back to work, or like, like you're being so tone deaf to what is actually happening out there.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. So I part of me, of course, you can hear some of my perspective there, some a little skewed than that, but I feel like it's not going to remember him well. And I feel like he may get voted right on out of there. And then in that case, he may be going to jail because I think he might pull, if he pulls out a second term, I think somehow he might not go to jail because of the statutes and stuff. But if he comes out of there term 1, everybody's going to be ready to burn him up. Like I'm looking forward to seeing the criminal proceedings that come at him. So I think that's one of the angles of history is like, this is part of his just.
But even with us though, even with us as a populace, even with us as the people who kind of got blindsided by this in kind of concert with what he was, and his administration was doing. When we look at the way the entire world has been responding to this, a lot of people, have been very, there was at first there was a huge panic, and then there was a lot of confusion, and then there was a lot of information that came out and people had to parse through the information. And now it seems like we're at a point where there's a lot of people who are kind of shouting from the rooftops, like, this isn't right. You guys are mismanaging this whole thing. And but like, we came through this as well. So like, how do we look at ourselves,
right,
in the future and say, like how we currently look at, the Roaring '20s, and we say, well, those people dealt with that this way, and maybe some of our grandparents, are still from that era or what have you, and so we can look at that and kind of ask them, like, well, why did you, or like the love movement, like why did everybody go around wearing daisies in their hair, or like during the '80s, why did everybody have these ridiculous like angles of shoulder pads and stuff like that, all these different things, that we have from different eras. How do we account for the way that we are behaving now when we have an opportunity to look back on it in terms of how we responded? Because, some people would say, well, revolutionarily speaking, like we should have gotten that guy out of office a long time ago. if we knew that this was going to be something that would happen. So, you know, do you feel like we're going to be easier on ourselves than we are on the administration? Or the administrations of the world, the UN, the WHO, and all this other stuff, the CDC?
I think, as you know, it depends on how long the duress goes on. But as it kind of break points happen, as people start to kind of, I think that there will be a lot of blaming, and administrations are probably the first place for that blame to go, by many people. You know, just kind of, that's the natural, you know, I think the people's response to those who are supposed to be governing them in some form or fashion, or at least providing that safety net sometimes. And then you get the contrast. You watch different, you know, I was reading an article about South Korea and Taiwan's response to this, and they dealt with SARS, and they were determined to not deal with it in the same way, and the testing was done in a much more aggressive fashion. And so when you have that as a comparison, you have a right to be frustrated or angry with your administration. So I don't know, part of me feels like there'll be less of this boisterous, you know, hey, I gotta go to have dinner tonight, they let me out. Like, I'm hoping there'll be less of that and more just a realization.
Thoughtfulness.
Yeah, thoughtfulness, realization that the numbers are real, that this isn't blown out of proportion. That's 200,000 people that we're going to head towards eventually. It's horrendous. And so I think the people will come together amongst themselves and realize this isn't, we didn't, you know, none of us is to blame. When you look at infectious disease over the course of history, it is the biggest killer. It's a plague. What the bubonic plague takes out like 2/3 of the population in the world. I think something like that. So these things have happened, but the way you manage them does matter. The way you open and close and allow society to kind of function in a normal way does matter, and does play out in terms of how many folks are affected. So I feel like Americans, I think part of our American spirit is to kind of, I don't know, we have this weird thing where we definitely constantly have this binary of turning on each other, but yet the American spirit is to come together. It's like, I don't know how this play together, but it's like,
there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in America.
So much. It's like, yeah, this is what we do in America. We pull ourselves up and we handle it. And it's like, the same time, are y'all watching the news in America of what is really going on? So I don't know.
I think it's important that a lot of people kind of uphold these kind of these talking points and these belief systems and stuff. But we're starting to see that those belief systems that a lot of people have are actually hurting us as a society or us as a global population. So this kind of leads into my last question. Considering we don't have a common language for spiritual systems that we use across, you know, all walks of life to cope with all these problems and to grow as people, how can we use this time to maybe potentially conceptualize a universal understanding of the more ethereal experiences of being human? Because we talk about poetry, we talk about art, but those things tend to not be directly tied to spirituality in a way that people take as seriously as something like a holy book or a sermon, or, you know, some kind of rigid structure that's already set into place. So how do we make it so that, because we're all going through this, like, that's the one thing that's really crazy about this time, is that everybody is dealing with this in some capacity or another right now. So as human beings, this is a very critical point in our civilization, where we have common interests, because it's rare, unfortunately, that we have, you know, a common interest between continents, between even neighbors. So now that we have this, is there a way for us to agree? You're Christian, that person is Muslim, that person is agnostic, this person is a scientist, and all these other kind of, you know, backgrounds that people come from. How do we come together and talk about that with a common language or a common respect, so that we can actually work through stuff together, even though we have different backgrounds?
So I read this, one of the books that kind of kicked off the reading period of being home was a book by Joseph Campbell, who's kind of known, I think, really well known for kind of mythology.
The hero's journey, yeah.
Yeah, hero's journey, exactly. There you go. Hero with a Thousand Faces, kind of that arc. And I can't remember even the name of what I read. I've read a few of his books, but this one, basically, he was talking about how he reinvigorated his viewpoint from something like, I think he was raised Catholic. And so how he would, despite learning all these things and knowing these were stories and metaphors, his understanding got reignited and gained passion when he realized, okay, this, for a while he didn't want to go hear somebody who didn't speak of it in the way he understood it, the metaphor, the levels to the Christ, or the levels to the to the Trinity, or whatever he was looking at. But then he realized it didn't matter that they thought this was an actual person on this actual, it didn't matter that they missed part of the metaphor. It was still beautiful at that other level of language. And so that but what he would do, the way he would enjoy the sermon, was to hear it on his level of the metaphor. So in that person, so if you need to hear universe when they say God, if you hear whatever it might be, whatever the corollaries are, and realize that there's something to come from that there's really divine knowledge, that even though the Crusades happened, even though blood has been spilled in numerous ways over many different viewpoints, there's still a vital knowledge there that you can pull something from, that when you hear it, if you allow yourself to not somehow push it aside and say, oh, that's not from my belief system, or that's
right, to let your bias filter all of the good information out.
Don't bias it. It's really hard to not bias it, because you have this culture you're raised in, but you can somehow see that that it's okay that this person calls this being Christ-like, and this person calls that being worldly, or this person. What do these words mean? What we talk, with language all the time. What do you really mean by that word? What's really going on underneath that? And does it matter if this person says Allah, or this person says Odin, or this person says, or you prefer a Buddhist structure, or you prefer something totally different, or you don't know, and you're okay just consuming knowledge, and So I think it comes back to language. It comes back to empathy. It comes back to I don't know, just putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and realizing, okay, I have a problem with this because I grew up in the South. A lot of my religious experiences I saw amongst my friends were Southern Baptist, fire and brimstone. I can judge them. If I allow myself, I'll be like, oh, they're judgmental. I'll end up judging them and say, okay, they don't know, they're ignorant. And next thing I know, how am I being any better?
Same thing, right?
To pull the log out of my own eye or whatever, look at their splinter. But you don't have to get lost and think, okay, that's a parable from the Bible. Oh, I can't use that. No, I can watch the Terminator 2 and pull something from that. If I'm a rapper, I pull from everything. But
everything.
As we said, we apply that to life. So there we go. It's not contradictory. It's not contradictory to read that book that's more based in Buddhism, and then talk to your mans about what he thinks about this totally other perspective that is kind of not what you believe in, but you want to hear what he say. It's okay to hear it out. And I think we close down a lot and don't want to always, So I think that's the trick for me. It's been because I'm very much not a religious dogma type of person, so it ends up being. I think it's the love you show your children. I think it's the love you show your neighbor, or the way you handle your life, and your pets see you, like see your energy, or see the way that you hold the door for somebody, or the way that you kind of put your message into the world. It's the challenge for artists right now is, part of you wants to shut down. It's like, what do I have to say on my Facebook message? But sometimes you need to say something that reminds people, oh yeah, it's nothing wrong with wearing a mask. I should look out for my fellow man. Like, that's helpful messaging. So
compassionate.
Yeah, I think compassion. I mean, again, like part of me will end up being like, oh, that's a Jesus freak over there. But no, his ideology is love, is compassion, is love for neighbor, love for stuff. It's a beautiful philosophy. So I've been trying to really pull from anything and not allow myself to shut down to it and think, okay, I've not been exposed to that, because I think that's part of your experience. So I try to share that in my household and try to realize, and not be closed-minded, because I can end up thinking I'm right, and my wife might have been raised or exposed to something different, and she has a more perspective that I could use, that I need to not shut myself down to. So, and so can my son. Your child can teach you a million times over, and just pull this thing out, like, where did that come from? And it's like a mix of Yoda plus some Yu-Gi-Oh plus a little bit of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Next thing you know, you're like, wow, I totally forgot all of that. I'm just trying to keep my eyes worked up for all of it. And
I think
I know I don't know what I'm doing. So I know I don't know what I'm doing. So I keep that, I guess, a humbleness about it. I know I don't know how to convey the world, the universe's mysteries to my son. But at the same time, we can discuss it, and we can say, what do you think? And let him speak, and then have that little nighttime discussions. So that's one of the ways I kind of try to have is have dialogue, learn things together, ask why, man, what do you think's happening? Just, I think that's part of what our experience is about. So that, to me, that is holy. That's like raising my child is a very holy experience for me. So just because I don't necessarily, just because I'm not over here doing it this way, it doesn't necessarily mean the woods are any less holy as a temple to me. So, you know, if you look at what do you want to fill your day with? And there's a lot of ways you can do that. So my son knows music is vital to me, and we do music every day. So we kind of find our own path, our way of like just relishing our existence, finding our, as Joseph Campbell would say, finding our bliss, following your bliss. What's your experiential enjoyment based on?
Right. Finding those commonalities between ways that people tell each other stories in order to make sense out of the world, basically.
That's all you're trying to do and before there was even language, they were stories. I mean, before there was written language, before we wrote that down, and it was verbal. It was humans conversing with each other and saying, hey, like, you know, look at those stars, let's tell a story about them, and tomorrow the story will change a little bit, and then it'll be an ongoing tale, and eventually maybe somebody will write it down. But eventually when they wrote it down, they didn't like how they wrote that, and they didn't like it, you know, that change. That's a whole different layer of things. So when we remember that it is conversing, it is back and forth, it is a dialogue, that's where the story ends up, you know, that's why it stays, that's why you remember it.
Keep the dialogue going, keep the conversation going. That's very important. And on that note, that is 16 bars from Shreve IT. Thank you very much.
Put that IT.
And that's right. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to shoot it to you for any kind of promotion that you want to do, any kind of, you know, platforms that you want to get people to follow you on, anything that you have coming up. Just let us know what you got going on, and we'll make sure to get people on your way.
Word. I much love to this platform for what we do, what we're doing here. I think it'll only going to grow. Folks can keep up with me. If they're seeing me right here, the Twitter's the same handle. I spell it out differently on this. That's the little social media handle. But if you go on like YouTube, you can see .Shreve. I'm trying to work on music. I think I'm gonna release like an EP sometime this summer. I've got one with my man Il Flittant. He's a producer over in the UK. He was planning to come over here. We were gonna do a tour, but we'll see now. I mean, he has a good show in New York in November, and I'm supposed to have a New York show, but it's on hold. So we'll see how things play out. But new music coming hopefully by the end of the summer. I think I'm gonna try to drop it like by July, hopefully. So just like probably like 7-track type thing, and then I've got. That's with one producer, Il Flittant, and then another one with a bunch of producers and with featured artists and kind of a full album. And that'll probably be like early 2021. So hopefully part of a tour, I don't know, we'll see how the rollout goes, but that's kind of the goal, is that hopefully by January or by the new year, the world is ready for rap shows again. And we'll see. But yeah, until then, I'm probably going to do a couple of little teaching videos. I think people like the teaching videos a little. It's a good way. My goal was like, I figured I had some knowledge from teaching that was going to get residue and get old and moldy and then years to come, because I won't be teaching in the same way. So I figured the semester, I should do it right now. Like, what are my favorite, you know, what are my favorite little jewels, and then put a little 6-minute video up. So I'm going to do some more of those. And I don't know, I'm not as exciting as some of the other people on their YouTube feeds and whatnot, but
it's all good. If the information is valuable, then, you know, we want to give people the opportunity to check it out and get it from you. You know what I'm saying?
I'm trying to less and less do the look at me thing, and more the, you know, bring something to the table. Like, what, you know, it's my rap approach is always
potluck.
Yeah, exactly. What'd you bring to the table? You can't eat unless you brought something for us to share. So my rap style has always kind of been like that, bring something to the table. So yeah, it's hard to just, and I think before we stopped, it was very easy just to go, and just never. There's always Twitter, there's always Instagram, there's always somebody on. You always want to go, and now it's like stop. So I think it's been a good reflection period for me to realize I should slow down and just handle business a little bit more.
Good.
Not run around as much.
Yeah. Taking our punk selves in the house. Keep it PG. But yeah, so thank you, C.Shreve, for coming through, blessing us with the 16 bars, giving us all of the entailments and what have you to go along with it. You know what I'm saying?
We do.
And we will end it there. You guys can check us out at lifeisafreestyle.com. We got blog posts. We will be putting up these videos on YouTube to make sure that we link them on our website. So, you know, follow us here for more of these Freestyle Fridays every week. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for coming through, C.Shreve, man.
Thank you, sir. Much love, sir.
All right.
FUV.
Peace, everybody. Yeah.
Peace, sir.
All right, y'all.